Hi, my intro didn't actually record for some reason. Hi, I'm Shelby, and this is Shelby Reads. Welcome to my account. A little bit about me if you're new here is that I'm a femme lesbian and I have been with my beautiful butch wife for almost 13 years and almost married for 6. Yay us. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to hear about Sapphic books. Today we are going to be doing my July reading wrap-up. I read 9 books this month, bringing me up to 59 out of 100 total for me. I'm right on track. Yay, me, woo. So let's get into it. The first book I read this month was The Final Strife by Saara El-Arifi. This is an adult fantasy novel. It is book 1 in the Ending Fire trilogy. Red is the blood of the elite, of magic, of control. Blue is the blood of the poor, of workers, of the resistance. Clear is the blood of the slaves, of the crushed, of the invisible. Scylla dreams of days growing up in the resistance, being told she would spark a revolution that would free the empire from the red-blooded ruling class's tyranny. That spark was extinguished the day she watched her family murdered before her eyes. Honora has been told she's nothing, no one, a disappointment by the only person who matters, her mother, the most powerful ruler in the empire. But when Scylla and Honora meet, a fire burns between them that could consume the kingdom and their hearts. Hassa moves through the world unseen by upper classes, so she knows what it means to be invisible. But invisibility has its uses. It can hide the most dangerous of secrets that can reignite a revolution. And when she joins forces with Scylla and Honora, together these grains of sand will become a storm. As the Empire begins a set of trials of combat and skill designed to find its new leaders, the stage is set for blood to flow, power to shift, and cities to burn. I loved this book. I could not put it down. The world building was genuinely amazing. And the characters were very believable and had like very real struggles. It dealt with topics such as colonization, disability, and addiction without shying away from the reality of those things, but also while being sensitive, I feel. I literally rushed to buy the second book in this series because I loved it that much. I haven't found a fantasy I love this much in a while. All 3 of the main POVs are queer. Scylla and Honora are both Sapphic, and then Hassa is trans. There's just a lot of great LGBT representation in this book, and I would highly recommend all of you give this book a try if you love fantasy. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. Highly recommend. The second book I read in July is Tripping Arcadia by Mayquist. It is an adult horror / thriller. It also says a gothic novel on the front. Med school dropout Lena is desperate for a job, any job, to help her parents who are approaching bankruptcy after her father was injured and laid off nearly simultaneously. So when she is offered a position against all odds working for one of Boston's most elite families, as illustrious as they are sensitive, Lena knows she must accept it, no matter how bizarre the interview or how big the job description. By day, she is assistant to the family doctor and his charge Jonathan, the sickly, poetic, drunk heir to the family empire, who is as difficult as his illness is mysterious. By night, Lena discovers the more sinister side of the family as she works overtime at their lavish parties, helping to hide their self-destructive tendencies and trying not to fall for Jonathan's alluring sister Audrey. But when she stumbles upon the knowledge that the family patriarch is the one responsible for the ruin of her own family, Lena vows to get revenge, a poison-filled quest that leads her further into this hedonistic world than she ever bargained for, forcing her to decide how much and whom she's willing to sacrifice for a paycheck. This book is a wild ride, and I also didn't read the synopsis when I picked this up, so when they started poisoning people, I was so confused. But even still, it had like a twist that I was not expecting, and I did find myself invested even though I was like, girl, you were making all of the wrong decisions the entire time. Also, the atmosphere of a New England Gothic really hit for me, as I am from New Hampshire. I went to school in Massachusetts, and the book is set primarily in Boston and then also the Berkshires, which is the other end of Massachusetts. With that being said, I did not find this book scary or thrilling really in any way. It was a pretty straightforward read. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. I liked it, but it wasn't like a perfect. It wasn't like a home run. You know what I mean? The third book I read was Someone You Can Build a Nest In by Wiswell. It is a fantasy horror romance. Shasheshan has made a mistake fatal to all monsters. She's fallen in love. Shasheshan is a shapeshifter who happily resides as an amorphous lump at the bottom of a ruined manor. When her rest is interrupted by impolite monster hunters, she constructs a body from the remains of past meals, a metal chain for a backbone, borrowed bones for limbs, and a bear trap as an extra mouth. Badly hurt by the hunters, Shasheshan's nursed back to health by Homily, a warm-hearted human. Homily is kind and would make a great co-parent, an ideal place to lay Shesheshen's eggs so their young can devour Homily from the inside out. But as they grow close, Shesheshen realizes that eating her girlfriend isn't an option. Just as Shesheshen's about to confess her identity, Homily reveals something else. She's hunting a shape-shifting monster that supposedly cursed her family. Has Shesheshen seen it anywhere? Shesheshen didn't curse anyone, so now she has to figure out why Homily's twisted family thinks she did. As Shesheshen's hunt for the monster becomes increasingly deadly, the bigger challenge remains: learning how to build a life with rather than in the woman she loves. I read this with my Sapphic book club, and I just have to say that this is everything I could have ever wanted for this book. It's so gross, it's so funny, it's so sweet. I felt really connected to Shesheshen and Homily, the main characters, in different ways for different reasons. I will also say that I feel like this is a really interesting take on queer love. There's asexual representation, but I also just feel like it mirrors a lot in the story about how when you're queer and you're going against the grain of society and going against what everyone says that you're built for or made for, it's very subvertive, you know what I mean? Like, it's so good. My book club was glad that there was no smut in this, but I personally disagree. I would have been fine with either, and I think that tentacles is kind of smut territory, if you know what I mean. I was genuinely so happy while reading this. I would do anything to go back in time and reread this again. I think this and the final Strife are definitely some of my favorite reads of this year. Like, they're amazing. If you ever want a full breakdown of this book, like a rate review type thing, I would love to do that because I loved this book and I keep only doing books that make me angry. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. Immaculate. Amazing. The fourth book I read in July is The Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This is a historical romance and it is YA. Acclaimed author of Ash, Malinda Lo returns with her most personal and ambitious novel yet, a gripping story of love and duty set in San Francisco's Chinatown during the 1950s. That book, it was about two women and they fell in love with each other. And then Lily asked the question that had taken root in her, that was even now unfurling its leaves and demanding to be shown the sun. Have you ever heard of such a thing? 17-year-old Lily Hu can't remember exactly when the question took root, but the answer was in full bloom the moment she and Kathleen Miller walked under the flashing neon sign of a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. America in 1954 is not a safe place for two girls to fall in love, especially not in Chinatown. Red Scare paranoia threatens everyone, including Chinese Americans like Lily, with deportation looming over her father. Despite his hard-won citizenship, Lily and Kath risk everything to let their love see the light of day. I adored this book. I love seeing butch-femme relationships. I have an entire video about butches in literature in particular. I think it's amazing to have a butch femme book set in the 50s for young adults. The only thing I think that could have made this book better is if the Lavender Scare had been acknowledged, not just the Red Scare. I know a lot of people don't know that the Lavender Scare is the firing and persecution of gays and lesbians in the federal government during the 50s, but it really went along with the Red Scare, so I think that could have been the only thing to really make this book better in my opinion. But honestly, it was a fantastic book, and I am like so glad that I read it. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Storygraph also. I really adored this book. The next book I read was A Scatter of Light by Malinda Lo. It is a YA contemporary book, although it took place in like 2013, I think, or 2015, somewhere in there. No, 2013. 2013 for sure. It is a book that is loosely connected to Malinda's other book that we just talked about, Last Night at the Telegraph Club, but it takes place 60 years after that book, and the main characters are not the same. Award-winning author Malinda Lo returns to the Bay Area with another masterful coming-of-queer age story, this time set against the backdrop of the first major Supreme Court decisions legalizing gay marriage. And almost 60 years after the end of Last Night at the Telegraph Club, Lo's new novel also offers a glimpse into Lily and Kat's lives since 1955. Aria Tang West was looking forward to a summer on Martha's Vineyard with her best friends, one last round of sand and sun before college. But after a graduation party goes wrong, Aria's parents exile her to California to stay with her grandmother, artist Joan West. Aria expects boredom, but what she finds is Steph Nichols, her grandmother's gardener. Soon, Aria is second-guessing who she is and what she wants to be, and a summer that once seemed lost becomes unforgettable. For Aria, her family, and the working-class queer community Steph introduces her to. It's the kind of summer that changes a life forever. This book was really different from Last Night at the Telegraph Club in like pretty much all the points that matter. I did find the main character relatable to a certain extent. I think it helped that it was set in the time period where I came out and my wife and I got together. And I came out in 2013 when my wife and I started dating. Although I was out to like a couple people, including my wife, late 2012. This book is really messy though. The plot revolves quite literally around an affair and cheating. Not my favorite subject. So if you don't want to read about cheating, stay away. It's also really messy because I feel like she became friends with the group, including the other person's girlfriend, and then cheated with her anyway, and I can't get behind that. And then by the end, it just kind of felt like it was all for nothing. So I don't know. I love all Malinda Lo books that I have read. I have read most of her work, but I will say that this is my least favorite. I don't think the writing is bad. I just think that it's not for me. I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars on Storygraph, so see, still not a bad rating, but just like not my favorite in the slightest. The 6th book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie, LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is a historical literary fantasy. France 1714, in a moment of desperation, a young woman makes a Faustian bargain to live forever, and is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. Thus begins the extraordinary life of Addie LaRue, and a dazzling adventure that will play out across centuries and continents, across history and art, as a young woman learns how far she will go to leave her mark on the world. But everything changes when, after nearly 300 years, Addie stumbles across a young man in a hidden bookstore, and he remembers her name. This book really did not do it for me. I don't know if it's because both of the love interests were men or what, but I just like noticed all of the plot holes. There was also just a lot of repetition in some places, which is just overall not my favorite literary device. It really depends on the story for me, and this one was just already not doing it for me, so I didn't feel like it helped anything. But also there have been some queer books with two-man love interests that have had me rooting for at least one of them. In the Swords and Fire trilogy by Melissa Caruso, I hated the first main love interest, and then the second main love interest was introduced in the second books, and I was rooting for him, kicking my feet. I mean, I also kind of pictured him as a he-him butch lesbian, but at the same time, like, he stood pretty well as a character on his own. I really enjoyed him. So like, it is possible to get me to root for a man. I do love love, even if I don't love men. Like, my lesbian heart can be melted by men and women pairings if they're done in the right way, and I just feel like this was not that. I just also found this overall quite boring to read. I am enjoying her newest book that I'm reading for my book club, which is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I think it's like leagues above this book personally, and we're about 3/5 of the way through. I gave this 3.25 stars on Storygraph. It wasn't for me, and that's okay. Not everything has to be for me. The 7th book I read was She is a Haunting. It is by Tran, and it is a YA horror book. When Jade Nguyen arrives in Vietnam to visit her estranged father, she has one goal: survive 5 weeks pretending to be a happy family in the French colonial house Ba is restoring. She's always lied to fit in, so if she's straight enough, Vietnamese enough, American enough, she can get out with the college money he promised. But the house has other plans. Night after night, Jade wakes up paralyzed. The walls exude a thrumming sound while bugs leave their legs and feelers in places they don't belong. She finds curious traces of her ancestors in the gardens they once tended. And at night, Jade can't ignore the ghost of the beautiful bride who leaves cryptic warnings. Don't eat. Neither Ba nor her sweet sister Lily believe anything strange is happening. With help from a delinquent girl, Jade tries to expose the house's rotten appetite. A home, after all, is only as powerful as those who breathe new life into its bones. And this one is determined never to be abandoned again. I thought that this book had a really interesting take on like generational trauma and also the effects of colonialism and the trauma also that like racism and colonialism cause. While this book wasn't scary, I am never actually scared by horror books because at the end of the day, it's just words. Like, I can just turn off the picturing it in my brain if I want to. But while it didn't scare me, I thought it did have really interesting and disgusting imagery that I enjoyed. I was also just so surprised with the swearing that this book got away with. Like, it's a YA book. I didn't think you were allowed to swear this much. I did still really enjoy this book. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. The 8th book that I read in July is The Ones We Burn by Rebecca Mix. This is a YA fantasy. Monster, Butcher, Bloodwind. Ranka is terrified of death. All she wants now is to be left alone, living out her days in Witchick's wild north with the coven that raised her, attempting to forget the horrors of her past. But when she is named Bloodwind, the next treaty bride to the human kingdom of Izodal, her coven sends her south with a single directive: kill him. Easy enough for a blood witch whose magic compels her to kill. Except the prince is gentle, kind, and terrified of her. He doesn't want to marry Ranka. He doesn't want to be king at all. And it's his sister, the wickedly smart, infuriatingly beautiful Princess Aramis, who seems to be the real threat. But when witches start turning up dead, murdered by a mysterious magical plague, Aramis makes Ranka an offer. Help her develop a cure, and in return, she'll help Ranka learn to contain her deadly magic. As the coup draws nearer and the plague spreads, Ranka is forced to question everything she thought she knew about her power, her past, and who she's meant to fight for. Soon she will have to decide between the coven that raised her and the princess who sees beyond the monster they shaped her to be. But as the bodies pile up, a monster may be exactly what they need. Okay, so first we're going to address the controversy of this book. I also just want to put out there that I got this book on extreme discount, and I was hearing like very conflicting things about this book, so I wanted to just give it a try. I don't think she really got any of my money, to be perfectly real with you. Before this book was officially published, there were some like early reader reviews that came out that were talking about the racism and anti-Semitism in this book. Many people have brought up the optics of making the oppressors in this book people of color, specifically the twins, the prince and princess, who are black, while Ranka, the main character, is white. Also, there is another character who I think is Asian. We will get to him because, oh my god, the optics, bad. People also brought up that the blood witches feel very close to like blood libel, which blood libel is this thing that Christians have done to Jewish people, and they accuse them of killing Christians in order to steal their blood and use that blood for rituals. Like religious rituals. It's not true. It's a gross anti-Semitic thing to say. It's not really up to me to determine whether this is anti-Semitic or not, but I will say that I feel that the blood witch thing is not super close to blood libel. However, if like Jewish people are upset about this, I totally understand because it can feel close, right? Also, like something about the blood magic in particular is that when it revolves around periods, which is, and here's why I think that that's particularly misogynistic, is because if you get this power when you're on your period and you cannot control yourself and you start killing everybody, it feels dangerously close to that trope that says women can't be given positions of power because they have periods, because they will become irrational and can't control themselves, because they will start a war or something. Like, it felt gross and out of touch and weird. I would also just like to say that while it's not my place to like say if something is racist or not, I would like to assent that I feel like it is. Like, I feel that the author really was not thinking about the optics of it, because witches and people in the South, the Empire, can be of any race. It doesn't feel that way when the numbers shake down, honestly. And also, even though the book asserts that the twins are good people and that they aren't doing all these horrible things to the people in the North and oppressing them, it doesn't really matter because they didn't really do anything to fix it either. And I know that they are children, but like, they're very representative to the witches of this horrible thing that has been happening to them. And they don't dismantle the system as much as they should by the end. Hot take. Also, like, one of the only other people of color characters I can remember other than the Asian guy we will get to in a second is their mother, who was a witch from the North, but again, she was part of the power structure that was oppressing her own people, and she wasn't effectively doing anything about it. So like, it's not a good look. We're gonna talk about Percy on the back of this book. He feels like Walmart Zuko, to be perfectly honest with you. He's Asian. This book came out in 2022. He is directly responsible, spoilers, sorry, for helping to create the plague that is killing witches. You did that after COVID-19, when people were making up shit saying that COVID was made up in a lab in China? Are you for real right now? Do you hear yourself? On top of all of that, I don't think that the writing was anything special. And if you're marketing this book as enemies to lovers, and in an almost 500-page book, we are only 1/3 of the way there, and we're already starting to have goo-goo eyes and like hee feelings, like, that's not well written in my opinion, and that's nuts. It's not enemies to lovers if it doesn't take that long for them to stop hating each other. Also, if you are a really good writer, you can make it happen, you can do it well, but that was not this. The book it lacks substance, and it also just feels like they were enemies for 5 minutes total, and then let's spend all of our time thinking about each other in a romantic way. Like, ugh. I think that this book had some interesting ideas, especially with the idea of like the generational, like intergenerational trauma, but this book needed a serious rewrite, at least maybe once or twice, with some actually experienced sensitivity readers with people who were part of the groups that she was writing about. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. That feels really generous, and I agree. I'm probably actually going to go back after I marinate on it, because the reason I gave this as a 3 is because I gave Evelyn Hugo a 3 last month, and I was like, I enjoyed this about as much as that, which is to say not actually that much. So I need to like ruminate on it and think what I'm going to like fix the rating to, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the 2-star range, honestly. And I'm probably going to put Evelyn Hugo down too. Like, it just, sometimes I also just need to think about what I'm going to rate something. So the 3 is not permanent, I promise. Also editing Shelby here. I did actually drop this book to a 2.5 stars, and I dropped Evelyn Hugo because I actually enjoyed Evelyn Hugo even less than The Ones We Burn. So I dropped Evelyn Hugo down to a 2-star because I was like, no, I can't give either of them a 3 in good conscience. So you see my TikToks and stuff, that's why it's rated lower. Okay? Okay. The 9th and final book that I read for July was I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is a contemporary YA romance. Chloe Green is so close to winning. She's spent the 4 years since her mom's moved her from South Carolina to Alabama for high school, dodging gossipy classmates and the puritanical administration of Willow Grove Christian Academy. The goal that's kept her going, winning valedictorian. Her only rival, prom queen Shara Wheeler, the principal's perfect progeny. But a month before graduation, Shara kisses Chloe and vanishes. On a furious hunt for answers, Chloe discovers she's not the only one Shara kissed. There's also Smith, Shara's longtime quarterback sweetheart, and Rory, Shara's bad boy neighbor with a crush. The 3 have nothing in common except Shara and the annoyingly cryptic notes she left behind, but together they must untangle Shara's trail of clues to find her. It'll be worth it if Chloe can drag Shara back before graduation to beat her fair and square. Thrown into an unlikely alliance chasing a ghost through parties, break-ins, puzzles, and secrets revealed on monogrammed stationery, Chloe starts to suspect there might be more to this small town than she thought. And maybe, probably not, but maybe, more to Shara too. Fierce, funny, and frank, Casey McQuiston's I Kissed Shara Wheeler is about breaking the rules, getting messy, and finding love in unexpected places. I'm gonna have to pop in tomorrow to give my thoughts on Shara Wheeler because I'm pre-filming this, and I will be done Shara Wheeler by tomorrow sometime. Hi everybody, this is Editing Shelby here to just pop in about Shara Wheeler. Yes, I look terrible. My dog has been sick all week, and my other one, Sympathy, chewed her foot. I'm exhausted. It's supposed to be my last week of vacation, and it's a nightmare right now. So, Shara Wheeler. I loved this book. I felt like it was very like rom-com. I wish they would make a movie that was like a combination of Love, Simon, and Bottoms about this book. This book was so fun and like a genuinely nice rom-com that wasn't like too emotional, you know, sometimes they get that way, but not this one. This one was just like immaculate. I loved everything about it, and I had like a great time. And also like, Jackie Shauna, is that you? Like, if you could be healthy and gay, let me know. But yeah, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Storygraph, and I'm going to like very quickly go over my Storygraph stats. I read 9 books this month, and I read 3,664 pages. All of them were fiction, all of them were Sapphic, and most of them were print books because that's just the way it shook down this time. And my average rating was 4.14, which is way better than I thought we were gonna get. A couple of these books were really trying my patience. This month had some real winners and some ups and downs, but like always, I had a fun time reading. In the comments, please tell me what you read in July and what you loved. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, guys. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!